Hey guys, Edward here from Edward279, the mixed content creator. The US and the UK, two English-speaking nations that are similar in many aspects. However, there is one difference, the variant of English spoken. For example, many vegetables that are called one name in the US are known by a completely different name in the UK. So without further ado, here are some examples of vegetables with different names in the United States and the United Kingdom. Round 1. Baked potato versus jacket potato. As a native-born American, the term jacket potato, which is used to describe a baked potato in the United Kingdom, confused me at first. And don't get me wrong, there is no clear answer as to how the name arose. But there are several theories, and a big one is that potatoes are baked with their skin on. This skin is known as the jacket, and since baked potatoes are cooked with the skin on, they're called jacket potatoes. The American name, however, is much easier to understand, as baked potatoes are cooked through, baking. But no matter what you call them, baked potatoes are still one delicious potato dish among many others in both the US and the UK. Round 2. Eggplant versus aubergine. As one of the most versatile vegetables in the world, eggplant is widely loved all over the world, or at least that's what you'd say in American English. In British English, however, they're not called eggplants, but are instead called aubergines. The name eggplant comes from the fact that many varieties have fruits that look at least somewhat like eggs. The name aubergine, on the other hand, comes from the Catalan word Alberginia, which came from the Arabic I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, and the Persian word badingan before that. All of these basically mean the same thing, the fruits of the plant Solanum melongena, or what Americans would call eggplant. Round 3. Zucchini versus courgette. As a cultivar of the Central American Cucurbita pepo plant, zucchini is actually the same species as other squashes, which branched off from wild squash plants native to Mesoamerica. In the US, zucchini is known as, zucchini. The word has Italian roots, having been derived from the Italian word zucchina, whose root word zucca is a catch-all term for any cultivar of the species Cucurbita pepo. In the UK, however, zucchini are called courgettes, and unlike zucchini, the word courgette has French roots, being a diminutive of the French word courge, meaning marrow or squash. Round 4. Beet versus beetroot. The beet is arguably one of the most hated vegetables both in the US and the UK, or at least that's what you'd say in the United States of America, where I'm from. In the UK, they're called beetroots, not just beets. Some people believe that because Americans live busier lives than Brits, Americans don't want to waste time saying beetroot and instead just say beet. Sounds reasonable, but no one really knows why Americans say beet whereas Brits say beetroot. Either way you say it, there is no arguing that beets can be disgusting if improperly prepared, but there are ways out there to bring out the beet's natural sweetness, and one of the best tried and true methods has to be roasting. Round 5. Lima beans versus butter beans. In the US, the term lima bean is used to define the seeds of the Phaseolus lunatus or lima bean plant. However, in the UK, these beans go by a different name, butter beans. The American name for the bean, lima bean, is a testament to where these beans were first grown and domesticated, the Peruvian city of Lima. However, the British name, butter bean, has less to do with place of origin and more to do with taste. Lima beans have a rich, buttery flavor, which is probably where the word butter bean came from. However, don't be fooled, as lima beans are still called butter beans here in the US. It's just that in the United States, Butter beans are used to refer only to the fully mature beans that have a much more pronounced buttery and rich flavor than beans harvested at earlier stages of growth. Round 6. Cilantro versus coriander. Cilantro and coriander are used to refer to different parts of the same plant. Cilantro refers to the leaves, whereas coriander refers to the seeds. But this is only so in the home of the brave and the land of the free we know as the USA. However, in the UK, coriander is used to refer to all parts of the Coriandrum sativum plant. This plant is used widely in both American and British cuisine, but the word cilantro is only used in the US to refer to the leaves used as a spice, whereas the word coriander is used in both the US to refer to only the seeds and in the UK to refer to the whole plant. Round 7. Corn versus maize. Despite being pretty much everywhere here in America, corn isn't used very widely at all in Britain. Well, that's what you'd say if you're from the US. Because what Americans call corn, Brits call maize. In American English, corn is used to refer to the seeds of the Zea maize plant. In British English, however, the word corn refers to any grain, meaning wheat, barley, oats, rye, or what Americans call corn are all typically called corn in the United Kingdom. On the other hand, maize is used in American English, but it's typically only used to refer to dent, aka field corn, whereas corn is typically used to refer to sweet corn here in the US. Round 8. Rutabaga versus Swede. Rutabagas really do look like they're turnips that overdosed on PEDs, so it's easy to see why they're often mistaken for turnips. Well, that's what you'd say here in the US, but what about in the UK? Well, over there, they're called Swedes. Confused? Don't worry, I am too. You see, the word rutabaga comes from the Swedish word rotabag, meaning bag of fruits. On the other side of things, the word Swede also has origins from Sweden, except this time it's derived from the word Swedish turnip, which some people in the US actually call rutabagas. And despite rutabagas, or Swedes if you live in the UK, looking like turnips on steroids, their taste is actually quite different to that of turnips. Round 9. Snow peas versus Mangetout. An edible potted pea similar to sugar snaps in many ways, the snow pea is well known for being in Chinese takeout, but can also be eaten in any way snap peas can. But while these peas are called snow peas in the US, in the UK, you'll likely hear them by a different name, Mangetout. And just like many other British vegetable names, Mangetout is French, being the French word for eat all. Which makes sense because just like with sugar snaps, both the pod and peas are edible. Whereas snow peas make less sense because they aren't harvested when it's snowing outside. Round 10. Romaine lettuce versus cause lettuce. Like most lettuces, romaine lettuce is mostly water, though not nearly as watery as iceberg lettuce, which is basically water strung between cellulose plant fibers. Even though here in the US, romaine lettuce is the right way to say it, across the pond in the United Kingdom, it's called a different name, cause lettuce. Romaine lettuce is widely considered to be more nutritious than iceberg lettuce, but when it comes to nutrition, romaine lettuce, or cause lettuce in the UK, loses hard against many other greens. Its name in Italian means Lattuga Romana, and since this green reached Western Europe, the UK, and eventually the US through Italy, it's widely considered to be where the name romaine lettuce comes from. Round 11. Fava beans versus broad beans. Fava beans are not very common at all in the United States of America, but in the UK and Europe, they're comparatively everywhere. And speaking of the UK, these seasonal spring beans aren't called favas like they are in the USA. Instead, Brits call these real-life cool beans broad beans. And strangely enough, the word fava comes from the Latin word faba, which means beans. So calling them fava beans basically means you're calling them beans. I'm sorry, I just found that factoid funny. And despite them being called beans, believe it or not, fava beans are not beans. Instead, fava beans are actually nothing more than vetch on steroids. Round 12. Garbanzo beans versus chickpeas. Despite the division here, the term chickpea is actually widely used here in the US as well. It's just nowhere near as common as the term garbanzo bean here in the land of liberty, or as normal people call it, the USA. However, in the UK, it's the exact opposite, with chickpea being the dominant term across the pond in the land of the rose. The United Kingdom. Like fava beans, soybeans, and green peas, garbanzo beans, or chickpeas if you're British, are an old world legume, being native to the Middle East and Mediterranean regions of Europe. Round 13. Scallion versus spring onion. As an American myself, I've called them scallions more than my fair share of times, and rightfully so, as in the US, they're called scallions. However, in the UK, they're instead called spring onions, which is ironic because in the US, the term spring onion is used to describe a different vegetable, another allium whose bulb is plumper and is larger overall. Despite them being a vegetable, they're used more like a garnish or a seasoning, being put on top of dishes rather than being the main dish like most other alliums are. So yeah, no matter what you call them, scallions or spring onions are still a delicious and nutritious vegetable. Round 14. Arugula versus rocket. Arugula is a peppery salad green in the brassica family, alongside cauliflower, broccoli, kale, cabbage, radishes, bok choy, turnips, canola, and mustard greens. But unlike most of its cousins, arugula does go by a different name in the UK, rocket. This definitely sounds weird to an American, but it's actually quite simple. The British word rocket is simply an English word of the French word roquette. However, once again, the American word has Italian roots, with arugula being a derivative of the Italian word ruchetta, which is the Italian name for the arugula plant. So there you have it, 14 different vegetables with different names in the US and UK. We hope you enjoyed this video. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!